The crisis in Syria leads to action on Capitol Hill and a tense meeting at the White House. And a Texas congressman is playing a key role in the response. John Dabkovich spoke with Congressman Michael McCaul, the top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, for insight.
Congressman, you have been working on this legislation, a bill that would impose sanctions on Turkey for their attacks into Syria. At this point, though, after all that's gone on, what do you think sanctions would even accomplish?
Well, I think it says to Turkey there are consequences to your actions. Turkey invaded Syria. As you know, I was involved in the resolution on the floor calling into question this policy of withdrawal, and also a resolution to call into question what Turkey was doing, denouncing Turkey's invasion of Syria. I believe it also endangers the ISIS detention camps in terms of our ability to secure those prisons, and also the reconstitution of ISIS in the region. So for those reasons, Chairman Engel and I, in a bipartisan way, and then also in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, both chair and ranking member, we've worked hard on a sanctions bill. And this is all predicated on the ceasefire. We want to give the ceasefire negotiation that's been brokered by the Vice President and Secretary of State an opportunity to work. That's a 5-day ceasefire, after which there will be a permanent ceasefire in the region. If that does not work and it fails, then we're prepared to move forward with our sanctions bill, which would sanction essentially financial institutions associated with the leaders in Turkey and the military movement into Syria.
So the president this week met with members of Congress on this issue, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and that now famous picture of her standing up and pointing at him. You were in that meeting. She said that she basically told him, look, in all of this, all roads point to Putin, essentially questioning his liability. Is that what she said? What was said in that meeting?
Well, I don't want to get into all the details. It was a very intense meeting. Of course, the president's looking across the table at the very person who wants to remove him from office. That adds a lot of tension off the bat, and it went downhill very quickly. She did end with that line. I too share the concern that this opens up Syria into more of a Russian expansion, an Iranian expansion, and quite frankly, an ISIS reconstitution. So, I don't know if you saw on the front page of the Austin American Statesman that McCaul, calls into question the policy and sort of led this effort with my chairman Engel. But I don't think it was handled very maturely. We're all adults in the room. And I will say, after the speaker left that cabinet room, that the other Democrats stayed in the room with us, and the president and the Secretary of Defense and Joint Chiefs of Staff. And we had a very productive discussion about moving forward. My question to the president and the Secretary of Defense and General Milley was, are we going to have a residual force to protect the homeland? We made this mistake under Obama, removing 10,000 troops from Iraq, and we saw ISIS rear its ugly head and create the caliphate. We do not want to see that same situation erupt in Syria. I was given the assurance that we are not removing 100% from Syria, that there will be a residual force both in Syria and Iraq to address any counterterrorism issues and to protect the homeland.
So you were clear that you question this policy, you disagree with this policy of pulling the troops out of this particular part of Syria, but to the point that the speaker made when she accused the president or saying that all those roads go back to Putin, do you question the president's loyalty to the country or to his position in making this move?
Loyalty to whom? I think the president, if I can explain where I think he's coming from, is he doesn't want to start new wars in the Middle East. I think he does sense that the American people are growing weary of these endless wars in the Middle East. I do think we can draw down our troop forces in the Middle East. There's a bit of a mission creep in Syria, as General Milley, a Texan who is now the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told me afterwards that there's a mission creep, and we were there for counterterrorism. We had to leave it at that. We're not there to nation build anymore. We can't afford it, and it's a policy that I frankly don't think worked. but we do have to be there to protect the homeland. And that's where I think we had that room to discuss in the cabinet room in the White House. Moving forward, how can we protect the homeland and meet all of our interests that both sides of the aisle have in common? And I will say again, it was a very productive discussion.
Congressman Michael McCaul, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Thank you so much, John.